Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
Vince, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, kid?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Life's good. Doing all right. Today, we're going to be talking about reading once again, Vince.
Yeah. On Reading Rainbow
As,
with our buddy Jordy.
As promised. Oh, see, don't say that, because see, then people are going to be like, "Wow, really? They got LeVar Burton?" No, we did not. We did not get LeVar Burton this week. Although maybe sometime down the road, maybe not. Yeah. But that would be so cool.
You should come hang out. We'll
hang
talk about stuff. Life, love, the Matrix.
Why are we talking to LeVar Burton about the Matrix?
I don't know.
Just that's Vince's big burning question to LeVar Burton.
I just really want to know what he thought about
like the Matrix. Yeah. Okay.
Do you think your visor would help him after he loses his eyes?
No. Well, so as promised, we're going to be talking some more about reading. Last week we did a Geeks Not Nerds about reading. What were we talking about? Oh, did you consider yourself well read? That was the question. And today's question goes somewhat along those lines.
Can you read well? Is what the question
is. No. It's from Dr. Tot 112, and he asks, he says, I find myself having difficulty reading new material, and I'm wondering when is it a good time to reread novels or comics, and what are some ways to get interested in reading new things. So today we're going to be talking about people who have difficulty wanting to read, being interested in reading. A lot of people these days say that nobody likes to read. That's, of course, one of those big, giant, unfair statements, but certainly reading is maybe as a recreational activity much less popular than it was before the dawn of everything on a screen we can watch these days.
100 years from now, nobody will read things for fun. It will, reading will be considered a skill for politicians.
No, I think 100 years from now, people will find it tedious to watch movies.
Can't you just zap it all into my brain and then we'll have wow, that was enjoyable. Let's do another one.
Yeah, can't we just interact with holograms? I mean, what is this? It's a baby's toy, Vince. It's a baby's toy.
Yeah, we'll call it like video cocaine or something. Just snort it and you're done.
Okay, anyway, so let's
video cane.
So let's get into this, shall we, Vince?
Yeah.
So why, Vince? Why do you think a lot of people these days just don't want to read? Just immediately say, "Nah, I'm not going to do that."
Well, to shine some light on why this guy feels like he can't read new things, I think it might be interesting to say that I think the things that you have read are sort of like a little bit of a comfort blanket. So I read Superman 125 or whatever that is, and you're like, and I really enjoy that. And I want to read that again and again, and I don't really care about reading new things. When you're taking a leap at reading,
because it's comfortable.
Yeah, it's comfortable. I mean, when you're reading something new, what you're really saying is that you're taking a chance and you're taking the time to do it. Like, it takes more time to read a book than it does to watch a movie.
Well, that's true.
So if you're sitting there reading a book that ultimately turns out
for some people, maybe not my girl, maybe not my wife or your girlfriend, but everyone else.
There's this. She just got a Kindle Fire.
Oh man, really?
And she was reading.
Vince and I, by the way, are a little bit jealous of our significant others about this. I think both of us are a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, super jealous. She just got a Kindle Fire, and she read 3 books, and she thought that she was getting them for free, but it turns out once a month they'll let you have this book for free. But of course, for most people, you're not going to read an entire book in an evening. I mean, like she read 2 of them in a day, so she accidentally bought 2 books. She goes,
oh, what a ripoff! And the rest of us are like, man, I'm going to be building these up a little bit.
So I thought that was interesting. Where was I going with this?
Well, I think it's interesting how you interpreted this question, and I think you're right, and I didn't think about this, that what he's saying is he's rereading stuff, and maybe he's not saying this, but what it seems like his question is that he's rereading things he really likes, and he's wondering if that's a problem because he's not getting into newer things. Yeah.
I mean, when you're reading new things, you're taking a risk that you're going to waste your time, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I will submit that, and we can come back to this later, that reading new things is not a waste of time because either way you're exercising that muscle in your head known as your brain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I know it's not really a muscle, but anyway, I wanted to call it that.
No, but it's like a muscle, right? Yeah. You have to. No, it is, and this is and frankly, the idea of that being a muscle is nearly a cliche, and it's a cliche because it's true. It's that the more you exercise it, the more it works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like anything else, because skills are like muscles, and reading is a skill like anything else. I think. Tell me if you think I'm right about this. I think for some folks who just don't immediately enjoy the act of reading, and most of us don't enjoy the act of everything other people enjoy. You know what I mean? Like that makes sense. That reading just in and of itself is not a pleasurable experience for some people. There has to be something else going along with it. And I think for some folks, you sit down and you read something, and it's just got to be. There's got to be something else there to it. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I think that people, when they sit down and they want to read something, they like, it's difficult to some extent because you're reading things that, like, most of the time you read things you don't want to read because you're taking a history course, you have to read the history textbook. Or you're taking an English course and you have to read that early British thing that nobody cares about. Like, I don't want to read Milton.
Yeah. I just don't want to.
I don't care about Paradise Lost. Leave me alone. So therefore, you stop caring about things that you would enjoy. Maybe popular fiction, or maybe fiction from another country that you read their language or whatever it happens to be. But so. Am I going anywhere with this?
Well, let me go back to what I was going to say because I lost my mind also. We both just completely lost our minds. yeah, exactly. We'd be exercising our muscles better. Let me ask you this: do you think I said that reading is a skill, and it is? You know how we know? Because our significant others are better at it than we are. What I think is that maybe for some people, and then this is just an idea I've got. Maybe for some people. It's hard to get real interested in reading something because of the fact that you don't necessarily feel like you've accomplished anything when you're finished. You don't have anything to show someone. It doesn't feel productive, And I'm not saying that every activity has to feel productive for people to feel like it's worth doing. It's just when. Okay, you have so many people who will watch the movie and not read the book. Why? Because, like you said, it doesn't take as long. And so if they're like, well, I can get the gist of it without having to read a book, I don't feel like I feel like I've wasted time rather than accomplished something. Whereas a movie is just enjoyment, and reading it's like it's work.
Yeah, I mean,
does that make sense? And so because you don't immediately have some kind of like productive thing that you can walk around and say, look, I did this. That's why there are all these programs for kids in school, right? Where, if they read a certain number of books, they get something for it. They've accomplished something, and then they'll do it. So I think it's because it feels like work. And what do people work for? To gain compensation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you go to a movie, you are potentially doing something passive, which, if you're really engaged in a movie, it's not passive. But that's why a lot of movies
you're
get made.
You're using your brain.
Yeah. But when there's okay, so there's a reason why a lot of movies get made that are just awful, but they are.
That's how Vince does Superhero Rewind. you just had a whole review right there.
See, it's very competent. You just have to listen to it in reverse.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a reason
very efficient. Why it's way more efficient than my 20-minute reviews.
Yeah, it's kind of like active transport and facilitated transport and all these things that happen physiologically within your body. Now go look it up.
Whoosh.
But. So where was I going with this? Oh, I was going to add on something you said, which was, when you're watching a movie, there's a reason why there's a lot of movies that get made that are crappy, but have lots of, their effects extravaganzas, because it's passive. You can watch something pretty on a screen and not have to sit there and think about it. But when you're reading a book, it's not an effects extravaganza, it's a book. And you have to sit there and be actively involved, because if there's any moment where you just stop thinking about the book, then you're not reading anymore.
I'm surprised that on the 4th of July, when it's raining outside, the movie theaters don't show fireworks.
I think you've got a point.
Just throwing that out there.
That's not entirely a bad idea.
It's not the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No.
It's kind of dumb.
They show fireworks on TV.
I think only if you can bring your own picnic.
Yeah.
Because if you have to buy their food to watch fireworks.
It would be kind of cool to have the fireworks there at Liberty Hall in Lawrence.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because they can take out all the sit blankets and bring your picnics.
Oh, yeah, because they can take all the seats out.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're talking about. Anyway, sorry. Sorry. We're in a mood today. But yeah, I think maybe that's part of the reason for some folks. But yeah, I mean, of course, reading was way more popular before there were so many other ways to so many other mediums to show a story.
Yeah, I think there's an inherent interest in story.
Yes.
And
Bingo.
I mean, when even you go back to the biblical times, if people don't think that there's inherent usefulness of a story, think about a parable. I mean, why would you speak in parables if people weren't interested in learning from stories?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, throughout the ages, even people who were not literate, and of course, you go back far enough, and you have societies where the majority of people are not literate, or at least a lot of people aren't. They still told stories.
Yeah,
and you always had plays. I mean, even when you go back really far, and you've got written story, but you always have plays.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Socrates would believe that that a play is not worthwhile because you're indulging a story when you should be not. You shouldn't be indulging emotion. You should be indulging reason and intellect. And
right. Well, and I think by that logic, he wouldn't have agreed with the idea of fiction in general.
He doesn't.
Yeah, where you don't.
He does because he's still alive.
Yes. But no, you don't.
Didn't.
Well, we were gonna get him on the podcast this week, but he was a little harder than LeVar Burton. Anyway,
Aristotle was showing interest, but there wasn't a lot.
So what about this business with rereading things you've read before? We said it's kind of comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you do this? Do you ever go back and reread something you read before? I will say I watch things I've watched before lots of times,
me too.
And I do have a few books I've reread multiple times.
I will. I don't really go back and reread things that I've read before, which seems strange to me because I have a collection. So why wouldn't I continually dip into it? But
what about comics?
No, pretty much new stuff.
Interesting.
Now I will say that I've gone back and thumbed through some old things to make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I want to reference them. But
well, sure, yeah.
But mostly when what I read is new because here's the deal. In my head, it's like I have to cram as much stuff in there. I never feel adequate enough. Like I just don't feel like I've read enough. And if I keep going back and rereading the things that I have read, I will continue to
feel like
deepen
you're
my
not
understanding.
Accomplishing anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I will deepen my understanding of what I have read. But that does not mean that I'm gaining any extra knowledge.
See, that's what's complicated about it, because I think both is important. Yeah. I'm not saying that you have to go back and reread everything you've ever read. I will say that many things are written and filmed in such a way where they're intended to be consumed multiple times, where when you see it again or when you read it again, you will catch things you didn't catch before, and that always happens. And like G's Watchmen. I mean, I can't imagine reading Watchmen the one time. There's something that because again, you might understand what happened in the story, but it's more difficult to really, well, if you're into analyzing things like I am. Not everybody does this, but I mean, if you want to really think about, okay, what's it, not just what happens in it, because you can enjoy things on multiple levels, right? Where you can, okay, I enjoyed this for what the story was, but then also what's beneath it, what's the subtext. I think, tell me if you think I'm right about this, I think with subtext, you nearly almost always need a second viewing.
Well, I would agree with that to a certain extent.
If you're going to enjoy it on both levels, it makes sense to watch it twice.
I think it does make sense to watch it or read it twice. I think that you don't necessarily need to read it or watch it twice to appreciate the subtext, but you're
going to appreciate it more. You're gonna.
Because here's what you do: when you read the story initially, you're getting an idea of what it's about, and you get to the end, you say that was interesting. Now, on the second viewing or the second reading, what you're really doing is you're looking for examples, and you're saying, okay, well, this is why it supports what I have to say. This is why it doesn't.
As if you're writing a paper.
Yeah, and yes. Even if you don't intend to write the paper, you're still making up your mind. You're still drawing a conclusion about whatever you're reading. I mean,
that's called critical thinking. We should all be doing that, even if we don't have a venue for it. Yes.
Now, I will say that it's also worth another reading.
It's good for your brain.
Like say you read or watched a movie once, and then you come back to it 5 years later, and you're like, but I still like this, and I think that's a valid reason to reread something.
Very valid reason, yes.
And I'll give you an example, and I'm going to
because you are to a degree a different person than you were before.
Like 5 years go by, and you've matured a little bit, or maybe you've regressed a little bit. Who knows? I mean, it could be all dependent.
I know people like that.
Yeah, it's like some people. Like I know a guy, but he hasn't stopped existing. I just haven't talked to him in a year. But so one of the things that he would do.
So it's not Socrates.
No. But he has quoted Socrates to me before. Anyway, this guy
what are the odds?
was really interested in a lot of newer things, but then he started regressing, reading lots of older things, and then started... it's not so much that he couldn't appreciate a story that was new and sophisticated, but for him it was wanting to go back to some of those nostalgic days. So he didn't want to read something character-driven. He wanted to read stuff like, the old Lone Ranger stuff that comes out. So, because the idea behind many comics and many old serials is that they're plot-driven, and, they're just fun. Cause you get,
sure.
But...
look, entertainment value should all be taken into account when you're looking at something critically. If that's what it's, you got to look at intention at least to a point. And some things are just there to make you have a good time. I just think that it's important, on the whole, to do more than just that. Yeah. But
so sometimes I think there's a regression in taste, maybe, or maybe that's just nostalgic. Maybe that's not a regression. Sometimes I do think that there is a maturity level that can drop based on certain events that happen in your life.
I think only caring about nostalgia is inherently a regression.
Yeah, that might be a podcast in and of itself.
I think, and understand, this is coming from the guy who still loves Death of Superman, okay? I mean, so obviously Captain Logan's got his obsessions with nostalgia, but I just think that if we're stuck in the past... Okay, I think that life is about improving yourself, and I don't think you can do that if you're mentally stuck in the past. Yeah. You've got to be able to look at things currently. It doesn't mean you have to like anything current if you think that we've gone so far south that there's nothing good anymore. I think that's unfair. But if you really think that way, be objective and tell me why. Or, not tell me personally, but figure out why. You think that way. I think it's important for everybody to understand or to care about trying to understand why they feel the way they do about certain things. And I don't think you can do that if you're stuck in the past.
Yeah, sometimes I think that people, they get stuck in the past. They don't trust what's coming out, and I think that all just kind of loops around.
I don't trust a lot of what's coming out.
Yeah,
but I think that you have to look at some of it.
Here's a good point.
So that you know why you don't like it. What if 10 years went by and you go, I don't like anything new? How do you know?
Yeah.
Maybe some things have changed since you decided to only read things you've read before.
Yeah, people change, and one of the things that John Tibbetts, one of the film instructors at KU, told me was that film analysis, film criticism changes. Like, it's constantly changing.
Oh yeah, sure.
So you go back 50 years, what a critic says about a movie is not going to be the same thing as what it is today. So 50 years. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, a critic...
No, they had movies back then, Vince.
Yeah. I was like, wait, did I do my math wrong? I don't know. But,
I'm not sure what you were driving at, but, I mean, there were movies back then.
Oh, yeah, there really are. I don't know. I was just like, wait, what did I just say? Like, you go back 100 years, you go back 200 years,
yeah.
And movies back then were just terrible. 200 years. 1,000 years ago, there was this idea that... so here's the example that I was going to give earlier about...
50 years ago was what, 1962?
Yeah, I was like, wait, what did I just say?
I just did a movie on the Pop Culture Yearbook from 43.
Yeah. Well, no, there was movies around in the 30s, so, why not in the 60s?
Before, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. I don't know numbers. I was an English major.
Well, so was I, and I get that, so what's your excuse?
So here's something that I think is interesting. When I was younger, I watched a movie called Ginger Snaps, a werewolf movie, and I really enjoyed it. I watched it again about 3 months ago and went, I liked this? I bought this? What is this crap? I watched the second movie and the prequel, and I enjoyed those. And then I went back and rewatched the first one. I'm like, oh my god, they're so teenage and emo, and I can't take this wrist-cutting crap anymore. So I turned it off. But yeah, that currently resides on my shelf, and I'm not sure why I'm keeping it anymore. But we do grow, we do change. So, and film and comics and books, they do change. they're being written for a different audience. They're being written by a different crowd of people. So
it's an interesting way to study yourself and who you are, isn't it? To watch something that you used to like and then see if it still holds up in your mind, and that can tell you something about yourself. It's very interesting. Let's spend the remainder of the time before we go to rants. If we have any suggestions, just tackling the second part of this, which is what are some ways to get interested in reading new things? How do you tell somebody who's kind of stuck? Look, I like these things, and I'm not real sure that I'm going to like other new things. Do we have advice for that kind of a person?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to tell somebody, like, what do you like? And then they say, well, I like these things that I've read. So a lot of the time I think people get stuck in the idea that if they're going to read anything new, it has to be like the thing that they like.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, I think that people have... that can help, though, because, people have tendencies towards certain genres and things. And so you can say, okay, well, the stuff happening now in that genre is not exactly like what you had there, but, that doesn't mean that there's not maybe a progression in certain places. I don't think it's bad to do... I mean, this is maybe a weird and unfair thing to say, but, I mean, I think people should research and explore a little bit on their own. I don't think it's bad to look at something that... I mean, unless you have to spend a lot of money on it, to look at something that you don't love and go, okay, that tells me something about myself. I don't want to read things that are like that. You know what I'm saying? My first thing that I thought of was go to the library. You know what I mean? Don't spend money. The first thing you do is at least don't make it a monetary obligation. Yeah. Go borrow something from the library. If you don't like it, 10 pages in, you can take it back and no problem.
I'll say this, that I've picked up books that I thought, I'm going to read like a chapter out of this. I'm just kind of, bathroom reading time, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And then I end up really enjoying it, so I finish it.
That should be your next series for Geekvolution.
Bathroom reading. What do you read in your bathroom? It turns out Ender's Game.
It'll have a theme song, right? It's bathroom reading time.
I can only film myself from the shoulders up. Anyway.
No, I don't think you should actually do it in the bathroom.
Why not? Because it's not big enough to support the camera. Anyway.
You should buy a special toilet for it. Just put it
just sit it in my geek room. There.
It's bathroom reading time.
But I think it's worthwhile.
That's the stupidest idea I ever thought of. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's worthwhile to go.
Not to do that, but
I think it's worthwhile to go to the library and sit down in the section right there. Don't even have a chair.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm kidding, but that's fine if you want to. I do that sometimes. But if you go to the library, go to the section of the genre that you enjoy, and if there's something that's kind of piqued your interest, I mean, even if it's a cover, even if it's a title. Or if maybe you did a little Google search on something and like, oh, well, maybe I'll enjoy this guy. Oh, look, whatever, Terry Goodkind. Let's see if he's interesting.
Yeah, and another thing is figure out who wrote the thing that you keep rereading and see what else he's written. Because chances are, if you're like me, you found a book that you really, really loved, okay, this is funny, and you're going to laugh at me if you haven't read it, but the novelization for Batman No Man's Land, that's what got me so obsessed with No Man's Land. I know people sometimes ask me, Captain Logan, what's your frickin' deal with No Man's Land? Well, it's Greg Rucka is my frickin' deal with No Man's Land. So what I've not done is gone in to see a bunch of other Greg Rucka. I mean, I've read some more of his comics, but I've not read any more of his prose. And so, you find the person who wrote the thing that you keep rereading, and then you go read more of that guy.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that when you're sitting there, and if you pick up a title based on the title or the cover, you don't have to keep reading it if you don't enjoy it.
No, if you don't like it, you put it down. But it's a good way to get the ball rolling, get started.
I think that it's important to note that just because you didn't enjoy this thing, just because you pick up 3 books in a row and you don't enjoy the prose style or the topic or the tone, that doesn't mean that there isn't stuff being produced today that you would enjoy. So don't get discouraged, is I suppose what I'm trying to say. And you don't have to finish something just because you start it.
I also think that you shouldn't be afraid of old things.
Yeah.
We're talking about, you're talking about reading new things, but if you haven't, it's like that old slogan that NBC did in the late 90s, if you haven't seen it, it's new to you. I mean, why don't you try out some things that you just don't know. It's new to you, and that can help you be, air quotes, more well-read. So it doesn't have to be brand new to be, just because something is new doesn't mean that it's awesome and valid. And just because something's old doesn't mean that it's not worth reading.
Yeah, I think that there is this this stigma that people have attached to parts of pop culture, parts of culture in general, is that if it's not new, it's not worth looking at. And that's kind of the opposite of what our Dr. Tot 112 has to say here, is that, if it's new, he's not interested in it. But I think that sometimes we get sort of counterculture. We don't, like, just because everybody likes it means that we can't.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, that does definitely happen.
I think that to some extent we need to chop that off and say, well, that's not valid. I mean, here's the deal. Even if things are similar, like, for example, Frank Miller's stylings I don't really enjoy, but he bases a lot of what he does on the way Mickey Spillane used to write back in the 50s. So,
and you like him.
And I'll admit I've not read him, but I'm open to the idea.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So it's just because things are related doesn't mean you wouldn't like the original stuff. Sometimes it gets watered down. Sometimes it gets better. So I think it's worthwhile to try things, even if you kind of expect to not enjoy it, because you might surprise yourself.
Yeah, and I don't think that there is any better feeling than when you sit down to watch something and you roll your eyes and you go, I'm not going to like this, and then it blows you away.
Yeah. And I think we were just talking about this earlier, that Captain Logan would sit down and watch some of these movies for Superhero Rewind, like, oh my god, I'm so dreading watching Sky High. And then suddenly, oh wait, Sky High is good. When did that happen? Well, apparently when they made the movie.
Because sometimes, I mean, there are a lot of superhero movies, and just because that's my niche doesn't mean I've seen them all. So sometimes when I sit down to watch one, I haven't seen it before. And, I mean, there are a lot of really bad ones. And I get used to the fact that there are bad ones.
Ooh.
And so then, I sit down, oh, this is gonna suck, isn't it? And then sometimes I get surprised, One of the ones I'm gonna do very soon is My Super Ex-Girlfriend, and I've not seen that, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if it's good or not,
It's an Ivan Reitman movie.
And I like Ivan Reitman, yeah.
If you like Ghostbusters, you ought to like Ivan Reitman.
Yeah, absolutely.
But something that I meant to bring up earlier is hindsight is 20/20. So you're looking at the past. Generally, when people are looking on a decade, they're looking at the highlights of the decade. They're not looking at the 80 movies that came in a year that suck. I mean, it's there's a lot of the time that I have a lot of friends that'll say to me that like, Vince, movies in the 80s were just so much better than today. And I say, really?
All of them?
All of them? Did you see every one of them?
You gonna make a blanket statement like that?
And then they're like, you kids today, your entertainment's just not as good. Like, well, no, there's a lot of popular movies from back in the day that fall out of popularity because nobody watches them anymore.
Now, of course, they fall into obscurity. You know why? Because a freaking lot of things get made.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I had a teacher that said...
That doesn't mean that only good things are remembered. Let's just throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway.
I had a teacher that once said to me that was... I think it was either Ron Wilson or it was John Tibbets, who said that... the Beowulfs of today, and he was saying that in reference to movies that are overblown, that people really enjoy, that nobody's going to remember 20 years from now. So, meaning the movie Beowulf.
Yeah.
Not people still remember Beowulf. So, I don't know. I think that's kind of where I'm coming down on it.
Well, hopefully that gives some folks some good advice and some ideas. I think that everybody, to a degree, has this. Or maybe not everybody, but I think some of us.
I think they have
a lot of us at one time or another have either been like, I love these certain things and I don't feel like trying out other things, or more often, I've had to read so much for school. I'm sick of reading. That kind of thing. And that's something we didn't delve into, which maybe we ought to have. Maybe we'll do that at some point. The whole phenomenon of, well, I used to like reading until college happened.
Yeah.
And now I'm just tired of that very activity, because even if I'm doing it for pleasure, it feels like work because I used to have to do it 4 hours a day.
Sometimes I think people convince themselves that they will only like one thing. That they will trick themselves into believing something like, I only like country music. I only like rap music. Well, there's rap music out there that is influenced by rock, and there's rock that's influenced by rap. And
that's very interesting. So, you don't give it a try, and then you tell yourself something about yourself, and maybe you actually don't know yourself as well as you think you do. Because, after all, you'd about have to hear it before you can be sure that you're not going to like it.
Yeah. I used to know a guy that would say, I hate country music. All of it. Every bit of it's terrible. And he would go on long rants about how it's bad. And then I found out he's a huge Johnny Cash fan.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like, that's, I mean, sure, it's folksy, but it's country music.
Yeah, it is country music.
So, yeah. And then, there's country music that gets confused with rock and roll. I mean, like, It's Only Make Believe by Conway Twitty. That was a big hit on the rock charts and the country charts. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Crazy by Patsy Cline. So,
Sweet Home Alabama is basically a country song.
Yeah. It's also a rock song.
It's also rock. It's a classic rock song.
So there's some songs by Cage the Elephant that are definitely influenced by rap. So
yeah, and what that tells you, of course, is that we're human beings and we don't have a label for everything.
Yeah, and I mean,
not everything squarely fits. I mean, like, if not all science fiction and fantasy can squarely fit into their genres, where one will have elements of the other, this is going to happen with music, and it's going to happen with everything.
Once I tried to figure out what category the white zombie fit into, and I was like, well, I guess it's kind of electric funk death horror metal or something.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, there's not gonna be a radio station for that.
Welcome to Z105, the electric death punk horror metal channel, where we play strictly white zombie. Oh god.
This weekend we're having a marathon.
Incidentally, we had the same marathon for the last 364 days.
That's right. Well, Vince, you ready to go to rants?
Yes.
Go ahead, do yours first.
Speaking of radios, I get annoyed.
Oh, what a segue.
I know.
What a segue. I forgot what your rant was.
We totally planned this.
Yeah. Sure we did.
But, wait, what was I going to rant about? Oh, yeah. So,
I'm sorry, let me help you out again. Speaking of radios, I get highly annoyed by radio show announcers who either have no personality or have that stereotyped personality or have that I'm better than you personality. It seems to be as one of three. It's either the, hey everybody, welcome back to the radio show where today we're going to be talking about amphibians or whatever. And then you have the guys for like blues channels and things like that with, hey everybody, now we are on the channel and we are going to be listening to the blues. And I'm excited. And then you have guys who are just jerks. So it seems to be that you have one or the other, and then you have news channels, but we're not counting them because, it's the news. What are you going to do? Right.
You're reading from a paper. But it's annoying to me that we don't have just people. Like, we don't have interesting personalities. We have the personalities that are designated by these radio shows, these radio stations.
Now, I get radio voices to a degree, right? Like, I don't think we're complaining about that. I think, and let me say that, I think that even I have kind of developed a radio voice, at least for YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think actually in my daily life I actually talk like this all the time, but I don't think I used to. but what I'm saying is I don't think the problem is that you sound like you were on the radio.
Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from.
See, that's the thing is I'm not saying that you can't be entertaining. I'm not saying that your voice can't be entertaining. I'm saying like Morgan Freeman has a pleasing voice.
Yeah, sure.
Like, can't we get people who have pleasing voices or pleasing attitudes?
You don't have to have a stereotyped, it's this kind of show, so I have to sound like this.
Yeah, like every time, like, here's the deal. I love blues music. I like Rule, I like Electrified, but whenever I turn on blues music, there's always somebody who sounds like they're tired. And I'm like, can't normal people like blues music? Do you really have to have a Valium to get on the radio to talk about blues music?
Yeah, it's almost as if they think that that's like part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's like nobody's going to listen to jazz if we don't have a low growl into the microphone.
Classical is totally like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to public radio and you got classical, and it's always like, okay, I've got to turn up the volume between the music so I can hear the person talking.
And can't we just have two intelligent people sitting there talking about whatever we're listening to?
Sure.
Sonny Boy Williamson said this thing back in the day, which I think is really interesting to reference to this. And now let's get back to the music. And yay, we're done.
That's a good point, too. Talking actually about something as opposed to just, I've got 35 seconds of airtime to fill.
Yeah.
Because, okay, there's a classic rock station around here. I won't say what, because I guess I'm kind of complaining about it. But well, here's the thing. I like the station a lot, and that's why, I listen to it some. It's just that they've got a couple DJs who come on, and every time they talk, they're not saying anything. They're just talking. You know what I mean? It's like we've got this airtime to fill. So there's this one guy who's all like, I'm not going to say his name, but it's like I'm such and such, and I'm and now it's time for this thing, and then he'll just laugh all the time. He's just like, ah, ha, 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 and he's not laughing at anything. He's just like, ah, ha, 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 ha,
Oh, death and destruction!
Yeah, it's weird.
You know, I was just reading an interview with Garth Ennis about the Shadow, and he said that he was looking at a lot of Shadow comics from back in the day, and they would all have, like sometimes, anytime the Shadow would just punch people in these comics, they would have, like, these ha-ha-ha's printed all in the background. Like, he'd sneeze! Ha-ha-ha-ha! And he says, well, you know, I'm not going to use it that often. I'm going to use it at key points. So, overuse of something makes it less meaningful.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a good rant.
Yeah. Thank you. What's your rant?
It's
It's like, my rant today is about radio show announcers.
no, I just don't even want to talk about this.
Oh, come on. We're going to
Yeah, you say that now. Are you ready for this?
talk
I'm going to talk about this some on late night next week. I guess at this point that this is going to be posted. It'll be this week. So on Friday I'll be talking a little bit more about this on the news. But I thought I'd bring it up now because, well, it's the only thing I can think of to complain about. DC is doing Smallville Season 11 in comic book form. And... yeah, okay, now...
Well, because you won't have to listen to them whine, you'll have to read it.
Yeah, okay, here's...
Maybe it'll get canceled because they'll have to work to do it.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Here's the thing. I'm not so upset that the Smallville continuity is going to exist in comic book form. Whatever, that's fine. And I say that's fine because, you know, it was popular enough. I can see why DC might want to do that. I wouldn't have done it like this. I would have done a spin-off of some kind. It's like if because the Green Arrow in that continuity is very different from the Green Arrow in the comics, especially toward the end. There could have been some things to do with that. Plus, a lot of people wanted Green Arrow to get his own spin-off on TV. If that couldn't happen, why not give him a spin-off comic? Comics exist for this. I mean, it's a lot easier to do spin-offs in comics because they don't cost as much, you know? So give Green Arrow his own spin-off, you know? Or give
How
him
about the Further Adventures of Lex?
Well, you didn't see the finale. See,
No, I
they
didn't,
ruined
so no,
they ruined that. They ruined any possibility of that because of the entire series, Vince. He knows nothing. They ruined years of character development.
You know, at least he won't remember having had hair.
Yeah. Well, no. Here's the thing. Naturally, of course, he only lost the pieces they want him to lose, but because it's small. But here's the thing, okay? I know a lot of people like the finale.
Can't forget puberty.
I never understood why people like the finale. I'm not gonna talk about that. It's just that I feel like because I absolutely abhorred it. Let me just say that I thought the finale was awful, and I thought that it ruined. And the biggest reason again was because I thought that it ruined 7 years of character development for Lex. And so why would I want to? First of all, why would I want to read that in comic books? I mean, like because of course Lex is going to be in it because now they don't have to worry about Rosenbaum, you know, because it's in comic form. So okay, Lex is president in this continuity now. Then that could be fun, except he doesn't remember anything, and so you could do anything you wanted with him now. He's a different character. He's not the same person because he doesn't remember anything, and so what do you care? But here, let me just say this. Again, I'm not upset that they're doing it. If people want to read that, that's cool. It means that I'm going to have more work and weird work to do on Crypto Freaks eventually. But the really weird thing about it to me is that they're still calling it Smallville. That's the part that makes me want to stab myself in the chest. Okay, because
not just the leg, but the chest.
So here's what we did. Let me just put it simply. Okay, we took a character named Superman. And we gave him a TV show where we get to watch him become Superman, or at least that was initially the premise, called Smallville. Then it got popular. Then it lasted too long. It lasted well past the point where the name made sense. And a lot of people say that by season like 8 or 9 they should have changed the name. I think they should have changed the name by season 6 because he's already spending most of his time in Metropolis at that point. And so we're not in Smallville very much. Why is it still called that? Then we make a comic book based on a show that was based on a comic book that is taking a character that has gotten a character to the place where he was in the comics before you took him to Smallville, if you get what I'm saying. So that's kind of wonky and meta all by itself. But then we're going to keep calling it Smallville. So if in this continuity where we said no flights, no tights forever while it was on TV, we had to contrive 1.5 million ways for why Clark doesn't become this thing called Superman and wear the costume at the point where it made sense, But now, because the TV show is over, and then we can take it to comics, and now he's in the costume, it shouldn't be called Smallville. It's ridiculous. Because if it's still called Smallville, why couldn't he have worn the suit 5 years ago when he ought to have?
Well, why can't they call it, The Adventures of Whiny Superman? So why not?
I don't see the point. We've seen every single villain. We've seen almost every villain in the Superman universe in Smallville already. It seemed like they were trying to get everything in before the show was over, and I don't see where there is to go. It's like we took a show that the whole point was to get a character to a certain place. Now we're going to keep telling stories in that same continuity and call it the same thing. It's ridiculous.
You know what they should do?
Ridiculous.
They should spend the first few issues doing what they're doing with the Ultimates, trying to undo the ruination of their universe, and then you can tell good stories.
It's written by one of the same writers. They won't do that.
Oh, well, never mind.
That's the thing. I mean, it really is going to be just more Smallville. I can't get my head around it. And again, understand, I think that something set in that same continuity would be okay. I just don't think that they should do this, and at the very least, that it should be Clark. Hey, look. Because they're trying to make it look like the show, he's wearing the Superman Returns suit. I mean, it's ridiculous. Because they had one of those laying around, so that's what they gave him at the end of the show. I mean, he's wearing the Superman Returns suit. It's a total conglomeration of bizarre. I mean, anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't want to rant about this, because I knew I'd get worked up about it. It drives me nuts.
It reminds me of the Pokemon video game card game. And I don't mean the card game based on the video game. I mean the video game based on the card game that was based on the video game.
Yeah, exactly. and I've had some folks send me messages. A lot of people are asking me what I think about this. Now you know. I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, because I know some people aren't going to be real happy about what I said about that. But some folks are saying, well, they did it with Angel and Buffy. Buffy and Angel getting, Buffy got Angel season 8 and season 9.
Based on the comic book, though.
I'm like, yeah. First of all, we don't already have that character somewhere else where it makes more sense. But the other thing is, I feel like there were more places to take those characters. I mean, like that show wasn't building to an end like Smallville was supposedly supposed to be doing, except it lasted seasons longer than it ought to have.
Yeah.
I don't know. When you got a show that overstayed its welcome by 3 seasons, and in some of our opinions, by about 7 seasons.
10.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that, but you don't like the initial premise of the show in the first place, so.
No, I'm fine with the premise. I just, think past season 1 it was awful.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's two's got its moments, but anyway, well, whatever. Thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm done talking now.
And then the podcast cuts in.
Yeah. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
We'll see you next time.